Welcome back to Indianomics. I'm speaking with the country's most powerful banker, Mrs. Bhattacharya, Chairman of State Bank of India. Mrs. Bhattacharya, I know these are trying times for bankers. NPA resolution. The bankers had approached Reserve Bank asking for tweaking of all those alphabet, anagrams, S4A. Have you heard back anything tweaked, anything likely to get tweaked?
We haven't heard back as yet, but again, it's like this. Whatever of the frameworks that have been provided, many of our accounts don't really fit into the frameworks. And we do not want to retrofit any accounts into these frameworks. So the fact of the matter is that each of these accounts will have to be given a different kind of a treatment. Now, unless you have a framework, we are not able to get an agency outside of the bank to look at it. So if you look at the OC, the Oversight Committee, which looks at the process and at least confirms that we have done things as per the laid down system. Now the OC can look at these accounts only if there is a framework, okay? And for the bankers, and I think especially the public sector bankers, they are keen that when some difficult decisions like these are taken, that at least one other committee looks at it and says that yes, it is as per the framework, okay? So if you have to provide a framework and yet you need different solutions for different accounts, then you need a framework that will enable all of this to come in. Which is why what we had suggested is that as it seems to be difficult to do anything to S4A, SDR, etc., the CDR has been something that has worked quite well in the past. So maybe what could be done is incorporate these features into CDR to enable CDR to have a framework that will take into account all of these
Basically
units.
What you're saying is we get back CDR with probably some tweaks,
right,
so that the overseeing committee has a reference when it approves.
That's right.
Then I would assume that you also want the overseeing committee to go through all the major resolutions.
That's right.
Okay.
We feel that that would be a good way of doing things because, as I said again, these are very difficult decisions and anything could be open to question. So it would be good to have at least one other committee that is totally independent having a look at it.
Dr. Viral Acharya had suggested that after the haircut is planned and the restructuring done, let it get vetted by rating agencies. Is that an idea that will wash?
See, the fact of the matter is the rating agencies at this point of time, they, even after restructuring, they leave the rating as D. We have not yet seen a rating agency upgrade a rating immediately after a restructuring. So normally they take a little time to do it. I'm not too sure, how they will react to this because I have not seen it happening. However, if they can be convinced to do it, then, it would be something that would be really helpful because then you could have ready buyers, for say the equity that we take, okay, in respect of a conversion of debt to equity, which we will have to do in many accounts. We would find ready buyers if the rating goes up immediately. But if I know the rating agencies, they will take their time about it. They will want at least one audited balance sheet to come after the restructuring is over before they start having a look about upgrading the ratings.
But that conversation has not gone anywhere? Have you already spoken with RBI, rating agencies and yourself?
No, I don't think so. We have not taken that conversation forward.
Okay. Now let me get the other structure that has been spoken about so much, bad bank. Has the government come forward? We haven't heard any official confirmation that they want it. It came in the economic survey, which is again an advisory or a recommendatory entity. Do you see anything concrete, government agreeing to it?
Frankly, this suggestion has been there for quite a while. It found takers in some quarters, it did not find takers in other quarters. But the main thing about a bad bank is that you need to have two things. One is you need to have capital in order to capitalize the banks that will give it at a far lower valuation, as well as the capital for the bad bank itself. And the second thing is you need to have a very good team that will actually take forward the resolution. Now, even if the government puts in some amount of equity and expects to leverage it and get money from the market, even then, the money is given to such funds only when it has a very credible fund head. Okay? So the fund manager is somebody who has to be very credible with a proper track record, who can run it. Now, frankly, if this was feasible, it could have been done earlier. It's not been done earlier. So I do not know what is the change in circumstance that would allow it to find traction now. Now, again, I am not privy to all of it, obviously. Maybe they have better information than I have. But as a market player, I am not finding any material change to say that, you know, that this is a proposal that will find more traction now than it did in the past.
Now, you know, ma'am, I spoke to several former central bankers and former commercial bankers. The sense I'm getting is that everyone is worried about a haircut because of the noise made. All haircuts are seen as cronyism. So bankers are worried about how it will be interpreted, bureaucrats are worried, politicians are worried. So nobody wants the baby. Is that the problem?
Well, it could be. It could well be, because the fact of the matter is, it is a bitter pill to swallow. And unless forced to it, you know, the inclination is to let it slide. But the only thing I can say is that it will get bitter by the day. You know, and
bigger by the day.
Yeah, and the sad part is that this time round, many of these NPAs are good assets. You know, one does not want good assets to turn bad, because today you are not in a position to support it. End of the day, we must realize that India is a resource poor nation. In a resource poor nation, you cannot allow good plants, good roads, good ports, whatever, you know, good assets to not be utilized to its potential. You know, look at what was the projection earlier. The projection was that India would need about 300 million tons of steel by the year 2020. What is the production capacity today? 80 million tons. So we are far below what is required. And therefore, the question of these assets not being used in the future doesn't arise. Today, if you look at the power consumption and the steel consumption per capita for Indians, it is lower than many African nations. Okay? So if that is the case with a very young nation, that is simply now, you know, so many people coming onto the workforce on a regular basis, the demands of the demography itself is going to drive, you know, all of these sectors. So if that is the case, if you don't want huge amount of social unrest, if you expect that you will be able to fulfill the aspirations of the youth, then all of these will come in handy. They will become useful. It's a question of keeping it going till such time as demand comes back properly and you are able to utilize capacities properly. Now, for that, you know, it is required that we try and take these decisions as quickly as possible. Then they will get on an even keel. Then the banks will be able to give it the working capital it needs to start ramping up. Everything will be on a much more stable platform. Not only that, what happens is, when there is a major asset like a plant or a port or a major road, if you ensure that it works well, the peripheral businesses start coming up. You know,
that is true.
These act as the fulcrum around which the peripheral comes up. Now, if the fulcrum itself, you don't know whether it will shut or not, the peripheral doesn't come. They don't know whether to set up there or to try somewhere else. So, you know, if we are looking for more employment, more job creation, it's important to get these major industries up and running again.
Yeah, so ma'am, if you have the CDR mechanism back with tweaks and the overseeing committee okay it, do you think if these two are given, we should see resolution in 2017?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is no doubt in my mind at all that you will see it. And as resolutions happen, you will find more and more players who are currently sitting on the fence. They will come into the fray.
Those are the guys I was asking about, you know, the foreign funds, the special situation funds. What's their roadblock?
Their roadblock is they don't really know whether they should invest now. You know, if the recovery is 2 years away, they'd rather invest 1.5 years down the line. Okay. If they find that it's going to happen now, then they will start coming in more. Okay? So the fence sitters have to be convinced. As I told you, what will happen with the resolution? Nothing great, excepting that confidence comes back. And that is a essential ingredient in any country.
But have you progressed in your talks with RBI on tweaking CDR?
We have talked to them, yes. I don't know whether that can be termed as progress or not.
Okay.
But we have definitely, put our cards on the table. They are aware about where we are, what we need, why we are asking for certain things. But I think they are aware of it.
Okay. Well, let me just come for a few questions on your own performance. You all had said at the end of the third quarter that your watch list was for this year, and you will relook at the end of the current year. Are you expecting that the watch list could increase substantially for FY18?
I don't really think so. However, I would like to keep it a little open because the other banks are also coming in. The 5 major banks are coming in. So while, we have aligned their portfolio with us, more or less, it is aligned, but still, unless you actually have the book, it's difficult to make a projection. We have aligned with what we had. They have still another 20%. So we need to look at that bit as well. And some of them are units where we have no exposure at all. Some of the units where I was feeling very happy, I have no exposure, I'm suddenly finding I have exposure.
Okay.
So, that is something that we really need to look at. But overall, what I have seen, I don't think, it will be any very huge increase. Yes, there will be some amount, but well controlled.
Okay.
Within control.
Okay. What about demonetization impact itself? If you looked at the GDP numbers, or if you look at several parameters, it appears that it is transient.
That's right.
So, are you getting a sense that you will, in your MSME or SME portfolio, in the fourth quarter, get away with minor injuries?
I should think so. I should think so. See, what has happened is, in respect of the small value loans portfolio, when you give forbearance for 2 EMIs, in the third month you are asking for 3 EMIs altogether, which is not easy. These people, it's a day-by-day existence. So if you have eaten up 2 EMIs, it will be very difficult to put all 3 together, in the third month. That is the reason why we had requested RBI that you back-end the 2 EMIs. Don't say that in the third month you need all 3. However, RBI didn't think that that would suit whatever they had in mind, so they insisted on this. Now, as a result, what is happening is my guys are really having to work very hard in order to follow up with as many people as possible in order to pull it back. Again, as I told you, these are portfolios that are very effort elastic. So it is a very high-touch portfolio. So you have to really go after them. Now, during those 2 months, actually speaking, we didn't have the bandwidth to do demonetization as well as follow-up. So it became a problem. But now we have got that bandwidth more or less back. So we are working a lot in order to see that, the impact is minimized. I think the impact in the agri and in the P segment will be minimal.
Okay.
In the SME segment, it will be slightly larger, but still means there are another 15 days still, so we are keeping our fingers crossed.
Okay. Well, the other, maybe the 2 major problems that you will have next year will be that SDR issues unresolved will have to be provided for completely. Do you think some of the SDR issues will get resolved, or will that bulk fall?
No, I don't think a bulk will fall. There will be some amount of resolution. Again, if I can see more of the large corporate resolutions coming through, then there will be more interest in those SDR accounts as well. So SDR, basically we are looking for a buyer in order to take it out. Now that also, will see more interest once there is interest in these large ones. Okay. So I think, it's all sort of bound one to the other. And if you can get a virtuous cycle sort of kicked off, then, it will go around in respect of other accounts as well. If that doesn't happen, then we may still take them through the deep restructuring process instead of just allowing it to fall and leaving it there. That is really, of very little use.
Yeah, so that's my only worry about next year. You will have possibly those accounts like SDR accounts coming, and you will have the aging of NPA. Therefore, do you think financial ratios will worsen much more for Indian banks in FY18? Or do you think that they will be as bad as FY17?
they will be maybe slightly worse off than FY17 if nothing happens.
Okay.
You know, if there is
But
no
your
resolution.
bet is something could.
Yes, my bet is that, you know, 90% I am convinced that something will happen.
Okay.
Because I think just as you appreciate it, so does everybody else. Everybody does understand that just by doing nothing, nothing is going to go away. At the end of the day, decisions have to be taken, action has to be taken. So I still believe that we will do that.
The government and the RBI get it. That, you know, they
yes,
have
I'm
to.
sure they do. They get it better than you and me, believe me.
Okay. No, I mean, the problem with tweaking rules is that in way back in 2009 and 2011, when the OTS was allowed, the fear now is that the loans were evergreened then. I guess that is why Reserve Bank doesn't want to ease the rules.
See, I think there is a difference then and now. The main thing is here, people are now convinced that pain has to be taken, haircuts have to be taken, conversions from debt to equity has to be made. That was now not how it was in those days. In those days, the emphasis was, or the attempt was, to ensure that the debt remains fully protected. Okay. Now, if you protect the debt in these cases of over-leveraged companies, you are not going to get sustainable solutions. To get sustainable solutions, one has to take that pain.
There are plenty of issues for which the banking sector and the government will want you to continue. But let's see on 30th September how much...
September, 6th of October.
Okay, 6th of October, how things are panning out and how less challenging you have been able to make the banking sector. Because you make the decisions not just for State Bank Group, but for the entire banking sector, and we will take stock then. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.